Welcome, everybody. Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're tuning in from. My name is Dal Gurunga. I'm here with Kishore Chandra, Achyuta Gopi, our live studio audience, coming in live from New York. This is Spirit Matters. So glad that you are here with us, your daily Bhakti Center podcast. And we talk about the Bhakti Center. That's what we do. Not really, not necessarily, but it's for our Bhakti Center community, both locally and globally. We got a global audience. I always marvel at that. We've got Philippines, we've got Brazil, we've got all over the United States, we've got India, we've got California, we've got that's about it.
Is it
How you
just
doing,
me?
Achuta and Kishore?
I'm like, is it just me? Doyle, is your camera
My camera's
less
blurry.
focusing? Okay, good. Because I was like, do I need glasses? What's happening?
We are getting old. We realized that yesterday.
Okay, we're back. We're good. We're good. We're good.
I think I pulled a hamstring the other day. I don't know what it was. I mean, I walk, I feel okay, but it was just like a lot of tightness. And I'm like, I've never done that before. And I'm like, oh God, I'm getting old. It's happening. Like I was just walking around the other day. It's like, oh, I pulled a hammy. And so it's happening, people. It's happening. I'm 37. I'm reaching 40. And I realized that like 40s is kind of that decade. It's like a no man's land. Like your teens, you're still young and flowering in youth. Your 20s, you're still young. Like I just realized I felt like anybody in their 20s is still almost like a kid to me. 30s is like you've made it to adulthood. Like you're an adult now. Like you're not necessarily old or young, but you're like a firmly established adult. And like when you get to 50s, I feel like you're entering like elder status. There's like a respect that comes along with being in your 50s. Like you have authority in life. And I just feel like I'm about to enter 40. I'm like 40s is nowhere. Like you're not like elder status or like, and you're nowhere near young or youthful. And you're just, sorry for everybody in your 40s. I'm about to join you. But it's just you're just nowhere. And
It's that
that's the
I feel
decade
like it's
I'm
that
approaching it. I'm
it's
approaching
like a it's
40s.
like a decade of despair where you're just
Decade of despair. Dear God.
and then I feel like, it's that decade where people start calling you old, but you don't really feel elder or respected.
No.
There's like
Like I'm
there's no
looking forward to
respect
getting into my
when people
50s and
call you
60s
old.
because I feel like I look at Martha, a very youthful spirit. But I don't know her age, but cross the 50s where she has children around our age. But it's like I look at her like with sweetness and reverence, like a motherly figure, but youthful in spirit. And so I feel like I look forward to getting to an age where at least age-wise people can take me seriously. You know, I feel
Oh,
like my behavior doesn't warrant anybody taking me seriously, but at least if I can get to an age where it's like, hey, listen, I'm 54, you gotta at least that gets me somewhere, right?
so I was talking to my sister and we were talking about these like age brackets, and I was saying, I was like, I feel like women, they usually get to like 50 or so and then they stop caring so much about everybody else. And they're like, you know what? I don't have to do any of these things that I was doing for everybody else's like pleasure or happiness or respect. They're like, I can do me. And just the other day, my sister, my sister was like, okay, I'm gonna tell you something right now. Stop wasting these years. I was like, what? What do you mean? She's like, listen, if there's something you don't care about, don't do it. She's like, and don't do it now. She's like, stop waiting until like, oh, you can get to like 50 and then don't care anymore. She's like, stop wasting these years
Hmm.
caring. She's like, don't do the things. If you don't care, if you don't want to associate with certain people, don't. She's like, start
Mm.
doing the things. Like make it like don't waste them.
Stop caring now.
Exactly. Just stop caring.
That's the name of today's episode. Just stop caring now.
But it's also a really good idea about like really if you've been waiting to like grab life by the horns, really
Mm.
take control of your situation spiritually, materially, emotionally. Stop waiting for this time or for someone
Mm,
to give you permission. It's already here.
Mm.
yeah.
Don't waste these years thinking, "Oh, well I've got to do this and then I can do what really makes me happy." Go
Mm,
forth and do the things that make you happy. Take the spiritual pilgrimage. Take advantage of all of these times and all of these things that we're thinking, oh well, I have to be responsible. Within reason, of course. Be responsible, but also take advantage of this
Excuse me,
time.
officer. Achuta told me to just go for it. and you need to listen to this episode. Have a good day.
Also, why were you just drunk and speeding? Like, what just happened here?
I had to fit it all in there. Carpe diem. Oh,
P.S.
goodness.
Achyuta Gopi's sister is like my new best friend. I love
Isn't
her,
she
and
cool? She's so awesome.
I never
Akuntita?
knew how. Yeah, I never knew
What's her
how
full name?
hilarious.
Akuntita?
Just a kuntita.
Just Akuntita. Okay, I wanted to
I
make sure
never
I
knew
got it.
how hilarious she was. I spent a lot of time with her these past 4 days, and we were just like, and she's so funny because I really appreciated what what Achyuta Gopi was saying just now about what Akuntita said. But she just has that mood of just like, you know what, I'm gonna just be me, I'm gonna just do me, and it is what it is, And I feel like it's so hard for us to say that or do that sometimes because we're constantly worried of like how people are thinking of us and how we're quote unquote showing up, and if I'm doing enough, and constantly ticking off the boxes. And yesterday we were talking about this idea of home, or of spiritual home, of what it means to be at home. And I think one of the biggest things, sorry to shift us out of
No, thank.
joke
I was
land.
just thinking. I was just saying, thank you, Kishore. Like,
I was
I just sent us like on a Hot Wheels track, just and Kishore's like, let's bring it back to something substantial. People always ask me like, what do you guys talk about every day? And I'm like, just whatever comes up. Age. They're like, really? People listen? I'm like, people are there. They're actually listening.
but I was gonna say, I think this feeling of being valued versus being devalued, or of being included versus of being thrown out, like that's a really big factor of what it means to be at home, or what it feels to be to be at home, right? To feel welcome, to feel like I belong here. And I think that there's a constant maybe fear, really like deep within, in all aspects of society, that if I don't do this certain thing, or if I don't behave in this certain way, or if I don't check the box that you want me to check, that means I no longer belong here. That means I no longer am welcome here, and therefore I'm going to have to leave, and I'm not included in this family, or in this home, or in this space, or whatever. And we were speaking about the Bhakti Center earlier, and that motto of the Bhakti Center is that we're your spiritual home, and that means for everyone and anybody. I was really loving, at one of Janavi's events. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was the first one. And a Prabhupada disciple was speaking about the first marriage that ever took place at 26 Second Avenue. And he was speaking about how, I guess, the marriage was decided within 3 days. Like he told the disciples, he was like, I think you should get married now. It's like, okay, we're going to get married. And anyway, to make a long story short, the bride, none of her family could really come because they were all in the Midwest, and the only person that was able to come was her sister, who at the time name was Joan, I think, who became then Yamuna Devi, who had such a wonderful relationship. Jahnavi and her had a wonderful relationship. But Srila Prabhupada really like treated her with so much love and care that like, yeah, you're allowed to be here no matter what. And it was almost like this childlike affection towards her, where she was like helping make, she was helping cook. And Prabhupada was like, okay, now wash your hands. And he would like pour the water on it. She has no idea what's going on. Okay, wash my hands. And then she'd cook, and then she'd say, Prabhupada, can I go out and smoke a cigarette? And you think about spiritual communities or religious communities where it's like, oh, what? Oh, that person smokes. Oh no, gossip and this. And Srila Prabhupada was like, yes, okay, here, wash your hands and just go out and smoke. And then when she comes back to cook, okay, wash your hands here. I'll pour the thing over your hands and cook like this. And so really this feeling of Prabhupada, and of meeting people where they're at, and really accepting people wherever they may be in this life, that's such a staple, I think, of our philosophy of the Bhakti Center, and of that feeling of home. Because I'll end here, but I think that feeling that people get so like traumatized over is like, I don't belong here. You guys don't want me here. So I guess I'm going to leave and close the doors of my heart, but I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about that.
Yeah, I want to hear from you too, Chuta, but I'll chime in just real quickly. Just it's just interesting how that specific point is coming up so often for me in conversation, no matter who I'm speaking to, whether it's people who are elevated on the socioeconomic, publicity status, or just peers of mine, or like my little brother, like anybody across. It's like this sense of asking the question of like, who am I? And not even like, who am I? Like, we have that on a spiritual level, like we're all eternal spirit souls, but like, who am I in this life, in this body? Like, what's the real me? And running up against that sense of like, we all want that feeling of home. We all want that feeling of acceptance and validation and belonging. And in order to get that, we're really smart. As human beings, we're really, really smart. Intuitively, we think, what do I need to do in order to get that? Who do I need to be? Whether it's, I need to be funny, I need to be smart, I need to be charismatic, I need to be entertaining, I need to be caring. And so we take on all these personas about like who I think I need to be just in order for people to like me. Even in friendships, I mean, going all the way back to high school, like the idea of like, I need to figure out a way to get people to want me around, you know? And we do that as kids with our parents and our family, or with our friends and social circles, or just with society in general. I feel like social media, it's like how many people are like studying the algorithm, or like figuring out like which, ways to like find ways for people to like get the most approval, because we're looking for that kind of acceptance. So I'm just appreciating the. I think what I wanted to say is like, I think that is a universal experience. No matter who you are, no matter how much, no matter how high or low, how um, successful or seemingly forgotten you may seem, I think it's a universal experience where people are struggling to figure that out.
Definitely. And, and we've touched on this before, and it does come back to almost like permission. Do I have the permission to be all the things that I am on the inside? When I go home at night, all the, walls are dropped and all the different personas that I put on. Do I have permission to be me? And will I be accepted? Do I have the wherewithal, or the permission to be me at whatever age, in whatever socioeconomic background and whatever status of life? Do I have permission to be me, and will I be accepted, or will I be cast out, just like Kishore was saying? And I feel like, especially in spiritual tribes and communities, that is so there, because we're always looking. It's like, well, do I have permission to be spiritual in this way? And then we make these hard boundaries, like, this is my spiritual life and this is my material life.
Mm,
And what one of Johnavi's friends was saying to me, this past weekend, we were just kind of walking around Washington Square Park. She's like, what I love about New York devotees is they're just who they are. They're going to show up and be Krishna conscious, however they're going to show up and be Krishna conscious. And she was saying that in so many different places in the world, it's so different. And if you don't show up with the right clothes on and the right persona on that day and the right whatever, there is a very judgmental attitude, like, oh, that you do that? That's who you are? Like, you just, what? You just went and got a Starbucks and now you're like chanting Hare Krishna? Like, how is this happening? Like, there's such a difference. And what I found was, in Vrindavan, that was the only thing that made me like, whoop.
mm,
um, because you call like the Pizza Olive Hut, right? They can't call it Pizza Hut because that's already taken, but they need something that's like close to what you'll know. So they stuck an olive in there. It says Pizza Olive Hut, right? So you call Pizza Olive Hut, which is not a devotee establishment at all. You don't, like, it's not. And then you call up and they're like, Hare Krishna, what do you want to order? You're like, what? I'm confused. You're like, what's happening? And in Vrindavan, everybody is just who they are, but also spiritual. It is
mm.
life,
Yeah.
and you go to like get a SIM card and they're like, Prabhuji, how much is this SIM card? And I'm like, is this guy a Prabhuji? Like, what's happening? Like, he's just in his random, like, dress pants and his shirt. And I'm like, I was confused the entire time, but it
Mm,
didn't matter because everywhere you went, there was somebody who was a Prabhuji.
mm,
And the guy picks you up in the car and you're like, Hare Krishna, we're going to take you all the way to Vrindavan from Delhi. And in the middle, he's going to like stop off and maybe smoke a cigarette and then get back in the car. And then it's, and like, it is that. And so that taking out my spiritual life and my material life, and it is just life.
Mm,
It's so beautiful to be in a place where it is just life now. There's
mm.
nothing else to do but live and be Krishna conscious. And life
Yeah.
happens. Life is going to happen. Life is going to come in, but you are Krishna conscious. Like that is it.
And
And so I felt like if there was something that I could bring back, it was that. It's something that I always wanted. That I am Krishna conscious. That's who I am. And life happens.
yeah, I was, as you were speaking, it, the idea of how that affects the way we approach relationships was coming to my mind. Particularly, I was thinking like in romantic relationships or intimate relationships, but then in any relationships where this idea of we're sometimes waiting for someone to change, you know, and this idea of, and sometimes we feel that pressure, like someone's waiting for me to change, you know, and we, I was thinking in terms of intimate relationships where, you know, we're maybe entering into a partnership with someone and it's like you don't quite accept them for who they are now, but you're anticipating that they're going to change later. They're going to get more spiritual as we go. They're going to get sober at some point. They're going to quit that habit at a little later on. They're going to become a vegetarian. They're going to want kids later, or they're not going to want kids later. And it's kind of like this sense of like, I am, this is all banking on you, quote unquote, growing, evolving, developing in a certain way. And it's almost kind of like, I don't love you. I love the idea that I have that you're going to become, right? The same thing even with kids. You know, a parent might have their kids like, you're going to become a certain way, right? And so I was just, you know, so I was just reading, I just finished reading Will Smith's biography, and one of the chapters in there, you know, he had all these anticipations for his family, and at one point, Willow, his daughter, this is in the book, and she goes, "Isn't it sad, mommy?" And she goes, "What?" Daddy um, a vision of a family, and it's not us, you know. And he's so candid, and it's in the book, and realizing it's like I had an idea of what I wanted people to be like, and it's like I had a wife and a daughter, and it's like it wasn't the actual wife and daughter that I had, you know. And I was just thinking like that idea of home, and I put in the chat here, home was a place where you're allowed to be, and this sense of like allowing people to actually be who they are and love them for that. It's really, 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 really hard. You know, that's what I was saying. Even like on the highest level of like fame and success, or even on just like a simple, like my own family and my own friends and relatives, it's just like, I think that we'll never be content or happy unless we get to a place where we're really able to accept ourselves and other people for who they are, and then love from that place, you know. And I think that's what you're saying also, like as a spiritual practitioner, like separating my material and spiritual life, like when am I how much am I allowed to just be without the shame or the guilt or the pressure? It doesn't mean that it's a validation, like you could just do whatever you want, but it's just like you can't, it's, they say sometimes like you can't heal a wound that you pretend isn't there. And so it's like you can't begin a relationship unless you start with who you are and where you are.
And that's what, Srila Prabhupada and Krishna are doing for all of us, isn't it? And Srila Prabhupada always gives the analogy you cannot wake a person who's pretending to be asleep,
Mm,
right? So
yeah.
essentially, it's the same principle of unless we're actually acknowledging who we are and where we are, because Krishna consciousness is a process. And Krishna, every moment, every lifetime, every day, is just allowing us to be and saying, okay, now I hope one day that you'll remember me and remember our relationship. But even if you don't, and even if it takes thousands of years and lifetimes, I will still be there. I'm going to be in
Mm,
your heart. And so I feel like it's so imperative for us to say, everyone here is Krishna conscious. You are Krishna conscious, whether you ascribe to rules and regulations or you don't, whether you jump all in and take initiation or you don't, Whether you
Mm,
come to every kirtan or you don't, you are inherently Krishna conscious. It is there already. That's
mm.
it. There's no like, am I gonna love you for it or not? Am I gonna accept you for it? You are Krishna conscious. And you don't need my love or validation or permission or acceptance to be Krishna conscious. Krishna is already with you. That's it.
Yeah. Martha's always dropping the wisdom bombs. She said, loving people for who they are and, capital A-N-D, knowing they can still change and become someone else, as so can we. This is a lifelong test. There was a TV show, and a couple was on, and they were about to get married, and one of them was worried, like, what if I'm not who you think I am? It was so sweet. It was kind of cheesy and corny, but this it was actually quite deep. And he's like, what if I'm not who you think I am? And he was just like, well, I'm just gonna love whoever you turn out to be. I thought that was really sweet. You guys are spoiled. Where's all the heart emojis? A question
You
box in
won't
there?
be able to see them. No.
Oh. Anyways, I want to hear from Kishore. He brought up the question, and then Chuta and I took off with it. Um,
Yeah, I brought it up, and I think it's a really interesting thing because the word that's coming up for me right now, hearing about this, is boundaries. Because I think that home is really important, and it's all really beautiful, and accepting who we are and accepting who other people are. And I think a lot of the times people get lost, like the language gets lost in translation a little bit, and it turns into this just like everyone should just accept who everyone is at all times, and we should just all love each other constantly forever. And it's like, yes, from a soul level, like, yeah, we understand that we're all on, you know have a deep spiritual birthright in a sense, and therefore love is what interconnects us. And I think that at the same time, it's really important, and I really appreciated what you were saying, Achita, because I had the same experience with some of the devotees who were coming from the UK, or coming from, like they were a little like astounded at how New Yorkers were. I remember I was walking with a friend, Radhika, through a park, and he sees, like, we're walking through Washington Square Park, and he sees this girl like on the curb crying her eyes out. And he was like genuinely concerned. He was like, should we say something to her? Like, is she okay? And I was like genuinely confused as to what he was saying. I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, don't you see this girl? Like, she's crying. Like, should we go comfort her? I was like, no, absolutely not. What are you talking about? He's like, but she's in distress. I was like, leave her alone. Like, she won't appreciate it if you go and bother her. And it was such a cultural thing, because I was like, I've been in London many times. And I told him, I was like, yeah, in London it's not like this, isn't it? He's like, no, absolutely not. He was like, no one does like big displays of how they're feeling like that in public. Like, everything is quite like, you keep it together, and you just don't do that. Yeah, you bring it down. And I was like, New York is literally the opposite. Like, if you're going through something and you need to have a moment in public, it's going to happen, and it doesn't mean that I want you to come and check in on me and be like, is everything okay? If anything, that girl or whoever might have been like, what are you doing? Get away from me.
Yeah,
And I
in
think it's
fact, it's
really,
the opposite. It's like, do
it's the
not check
opposite.
on me.
Do
I'm
not
having
check
a
on her.
moment in private, in public.
Don't talk to me. But I think it's really interesting, because this idea of of boundaries, it's like, I'm having a moment. When do I need or want you to check in on me or not check in on me? And I think this dichotomy of like being extremely expressive, or like having the need to share something, but not necessarily needing someone to fix it or fix the problem. And then there's the opposite of that, what he was experiencing, coming from a culture where it's like, don't show your experience of anything, just bottle it all inside. It's like the ultimate locked thing. And it's just so interesting, that that boundary of like how we show or how we don't show, and how I want people to approach or how I don't want people to approach. And I think that that's such an interesting conversation when it comes to these topics of like being myself and allowing myself to just like be as I am. On Sunday, and we're reaching time, so I'll finish here. On Sunday, I was like not in a good mood. I was like exhausted on Sunday. I was like getting to the point of just like, meow. And
he was sitting on the side of the road, bawling his eyes out,
and it was so funny, because I
wanting
remember
everyone
one
to
of
leave him alone.
yeah, exactly. One of the devotees at the Bhakti Center was like, are you okay? And I was just like, yeah, like I'm fine. He's like, are you sure? Are you sure you're okay? I'm just, and he was from the UK. He's like, are you sure you look like you're not, he's like, you look like you're not okay. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm fine. Just go over
You
there.
had to
Go over
clarify that
there.
he was from the UK.
Yeah. Because I think anyone from New York would just be like, whatever, man. Like, okay. And I think it's really interesting. It's like this idea, and we've talked about this topic many times, this idea of performance or of showing up or how people view me and all of this. It's so interesting and nuanced and cultural as well. And I think it's really about like just finding your people and feeling comfortable where you're at, you know, because first, I'm not saying that the London thing is wrong. I'm saying that like that's how they are. And okay, you know, chill in London and be like that. But if we're going to be in New York, like this is how it's going to be, you know. And so it's like when you find your people or the people that the boundary starts to feel natural, I guess is maybe what I'm trying to say. Like when I was meeting your sister Akundita, it was just like, oh, this, we understand, you know. This is clear. And those things start to feel natural and you don't have to over explain everything or over assert or over this. I feel like that becomes very unnatural. And I think tying it back to this idea of home should feel very natural. It shouldn't feel like an artifice. It shouldn't feel like something contrived, you know. And anyway, those are my thoughts. I feel like I went in a lot of places, but that word is on my mind: boundaries.
I think you just scared everybody from ever coming to New York. New York is a place where nobody cares.
Well, actually, New York is a place where everybody cares. We just show it differently. Like, you know,
Mm,
we'll care about you. We won't talk to you, but we'll help you out if you need help.
yes.
Right? Like if you see somebody struggling with a stroller down the subway stairs, you'll help them. I'm not going to talk to you, but I'm going to help you. Like if somebody needs you to hold the subway car doors, they most likely will hold the doors. And then we'll never talk to you again. Like it's so simple. These are the boundaries. Help me, but don't talk to me about it. No.
Mm. Well, I think, and I know we're wrapping up on our time here, but also I think that there's the word coming up for me. So much of it is also communication.
Mm,
Like it's if I need something, I'll ask for it, or I could ask if you need something, and then I'll trust that you'll tell me if you do. Like there's like this simple trust of communication, and I think that that is also a really big important part of it as well that we're not going to get into right now. But I was just thinking the idea of trusting that people will let me know if they need something,
mm.
and that's also a big part of I think relationship and trust, etc. So, but anyways, on that note, want to hear from Kimberly. We've got some takeaways from today. Kimberly's always taking good notes and letting us know, reminding us what we talked about. If anybody has some takeaways they want to share in the chat, a phrase, a word, something that they want to put down there for us to read out, please feel free.
All right. These are my takeaways today. Don't wait for someone to give you permission. Go forth
Mm.
and do the things that make you happy. Love from a place where we're able to accept ourselves and others for who they are and where they are at. And we are all inherently Krishna conscious, whether we ascribe to rules or regulations.
Mm. Thank you, Kimberly. And Kishore and Achuta, what are you guys walking away with today?
I really like this idea of um asking if I need assistance. Sometimes you're going through stuff and you don't really need assistance, and sometimes you're going through stuff and you really do just need to like reach out and ask. And then on the flip side, because just thinking about cultural differences, right? Like in London, the thing is when you say hi, how are you? It's not hi, how are you? It's like, hey, you okay? But and I was asking one of my friends because they asked me and I was like, anybody ever hit you with the no, I'm not? And they're like, no, like you're not supposed to do that. Like
Mm.
the cultural response is to just say, yeah, and you move on. Like you're not like the interesting thing about
Mm,
London is sometimes they'll ask you questions and the only polite response is to give like the accepted response. You don't like deviate from that.
mm,
It's like asking somebody if they're sure about something, like are you sure? Sometimes they're asking you if you're sure because they don't want to do it and the only thing is to say, oh no, it's fine, I'll just handle it. Like you're not supposed to like rock the boat. And so
mm,
like this idea of like rocking the boat in our relationships or even asking or having the courage to actually say to somebody, are you okay? But knowing who that flies with, like knowing like there's a girl randomly on the street you make the eye contact, they'll let you know through the eye contact, and then you keep it moving. Or knowing your friends, like if I know Kishore and I'm like, you okay? What do you need? Like, what do you need? And so it's different from like, are you okay? Are you all right? And what do you need? And then having the
Mm.
courage as
Mm,
somebody, if you're going through something, to say, you know what I really, really need right now? So this idea of just being authentic
mm,
in giving help and in asking for help is
mm,
something that I'm walking away with.
mm.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm also feeling along those same lines of being authentic. And I think that through that authenticity, Doyal brought this big thing, the big C word, communication, which is so important. And I think that communication has so much to do with trust. And I think trust in general is something that just like as a society is very lacking. It's been bludgeoned in so many ways, and it's hard for people to have a deep trust of each other in this world that we live in. And so I think I'm walking away with this idea of yeah, like I'm gonna trust that like if you need something, like you're gonna tell me. I'm gonna trust that if I need to tell you something, I'm gonna tell you. And it really kind of puts the onus on the individual, which is kind of empowering actually. It's like I need to say something if I'm feeling whatever way or not, and I'm not gonna say it and I don't need it, etc. And I think it's a really, yeah, just like how can I trust myself to say what it is that I need help with or don't need help with, and how can I trust others to say that to me when they need to say it or not, or etc. And then Vidya is saying I had a class with His Holiness Bhakti Brihat Bhagavat Swami, and he said we should label other people as karmis or non-devotees. I think she meant shouldn't. Yeah, that he said we shouldn't label other people as karmis or non-devotees.
I'm gonna edit this one, just
No,
whether you meant it or not. I'm gonna take the
she,
liberty to
she wrote,
politically correct this statement.
she wrote, we should not. I'm going to reread that. So he said, we should not label other people as karmis or non-devotees. We should see them as they are, potential devotees, and they are innocent in their ignorance. That's really beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think we all are in that sense. We're all so innocent in our ignorance sometimes, and that's really spiritual life bringing us out of that place.
Yeah, I was listening to a class by Swami Better Than You Ananda, and he was saying you guys are all out of your mind.
That point is so interesting, like when we think about um karmis or non-devotees, and then we realize, like, I'm like, why are you putting a pedestal on a devotee?
Mm,
That word, it just means people.
mm,
They might just happen to know about Krishna consciously. Other people know
mm,
about Krishna unconsciously. Everyone's a devotee, actually. Krishna's in their heart, which makes everybody a devotee. Srila Prabhupada said every single living entity has an unbreakable relationship with Krishna. There
mm.
is actually no such thing as a non-devotee, which then also brings up, I'm like, so then be careful what pedestal you give to the term devotee, because
Mm.
devotees are just people.
This is a topic that I have a lot to say about, but we've gone over time because this is a big topic for me. But
We're gonna. My takeaway is to never show my emotions to anybody ever again, and that's what I'm walking away with. No, my takeaway is just appreciating. Oh God, there's so many, but I guess also just I think part of home, part of trusting relationships is that I don't have to be everything for everybody, and people are allowed to have their moments or their experiences, and I don't have to fix it and jump in for everything. Just kind of giving people space to be a little bit. Um, because I don't because so much of it comes from me feeling like I need to play a role in your life. I need to have a role in your life in order to be valued and for you to want me around. And so I got to be the fixer, I got to be the soother, I got to be the advice giver, I got to be the problem solver. And it's like I don't have to be that in order to have a valued place in a person's life. So thank you guys so much for being friends, for being family. Thank you for our live audience. Thank you for those tuning in. We love you so, so, so much. If you're still listening, I've been supposed to be announcing this every day this week. Kishore and I are taking a digital detox at the end of this month. May, what are the dates? 19th?
19th to the 22nd.
19th to 22nd, upstate New York. For those in town or want to come in, it's a digital detox, meaning we're not going to have a podcast just that Friday.
Just that Friday.
It's the Friday, and also no digital devices, nothing. So just unplug, recharge, spend some time with us, home cooked meals, yoga, kirtan, nature, conversation. And come join us, bhakticenter.org, if you want to get on that. We love you guys. Be well. Take care. See you
I will
next time.
digital overload on your behalf.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, she's going to digital overload. It's like you come back from a digital detox. Like, you have 700 2,000 messages. Your phone just blows up. All right, guys. Take care. Be well. We'll see you next time.